Hello, my name is Don Williams, and I imagine a large number of you want to know more about me. I would too in your shoes. So I'm going to give you some more details about me to sort of give some depth to why I can say I can teach self-actualization education. First off, I don't have a background in psychology. I don't have some sort of credits, courses, certificates about coaching or anything else like that. This is all raw me experience. What I do have is a degree in engineering, which is very different from what you would think. That's one of the benefits, because when I start explaining more about this information, you'll understand that being able to describe this in a sort of process, science, not all dry out, because I don't sound like an engineer, but in a way that you'll be able to get some concepts that you maybe wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself. What gives me this authority to say I know about self-actualization? And who am I, right? Well, it comes from this. When I was 10 years old, I broke my neck, and I was fully paralyzed. When I say fully paralyzed, that means from the neck down, I couldn't move or feel. Now that sounds like an ominous, terrible experience, and it was. But the context and the experience wrapped in with that, whoa, I'll tell you, it's a story, all right. So let me give you some background details about me, kind of about my family, and the events that sort of led up to that experience. I'm not going to go on too long, but I'll give you just what you need. So for me, I was the average boy. I was always into something when I was a baby. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but when I was a kid, I loved these little rocking horses. The ones that were about this tall, suspended on springs. Oh, I loved the sucker. It's one of my favorite things I ever had. My mom kept it in the basement. Now, she had this fear that I would, at night, walk downstairs, somehow stumble, fall, and hurt myself in my pursuit to go get on this. So she changed all the locks, the keys, and all sorts of stuff. And me, I was Mr. Houdini. She could never figure out how I got downstairs. I'll give you another example. I'd be like in a playpen, right? And I want to get out of the playpen. So I'd run to the playpen and flip it. I just knew how to do that. Or let's give you another crazy example. I took a dresser, used the dresser as a ladder, pulled out the drawers, climbed up on top. Actually had a dresser fall on me. That's another story altogether. It gives you an idea of what it was when I was a little kid. So I had two brothers, an older and a younger. My younger brother was 2 years younger than me, and my older brother was 7 years older than me. Now, my older brother paid attention to these things I was doing while I was younger, and he had this cool idea, or at least so he thought. I'm going to make this kid a super athlete. He won't have to work, and he can live off of all the money I would bring in. Kind of a cool concept. So he'd be running me in the snow. He would be babysitting my younger brother and I and set up wrestling matches and all kinds of stuff. He'd be doing the push-ups and the sit-ups and pull-ups and the full thing. Whatever you could think of, as he could train me while I was growing up. And I just thought it was fun. And just me against me. That's the way I kind of always looked at things. So that's kind of the context of that. As I got older, though, my older brother, 7 years older than me, in my later early years, say like 7, 8, I was playing football with his friends. So to give you an idea of tough, I mean football with kids 7 years older than me, and they didn't mind me playing. Kind of surprising, isn't it? He actually had a friend that would give me a lip one time. I told him, whoa, cut it out or I'm going to hit you. I mean, I was really direct and forward with him, and he didn't really like that. He looked over at my older brother, and my older brother was like, yeah, come on, you just listen to him. For some reason, he thought everyone was making something up. He said something, and I went off, and, well, I hit him. He was so afraid to come by. He would call ahead, ask my mom if I was going to be home. So when you talk about a tough kid, I was a tough kid. Didn't mean I was mean or anything, just I followed through with what I said I'd do. Give you some more context. So I've had one experience where I was in the hospital when I was about 3 years old. You can see this scar here on my cheek. Well, I had this other wild, weird experience happen to me. It grew out, and it was this huge kind of softball-like thing on the side of my face. Imagine I'm 3 or 4, this big growth. They go in and they do the surgery. Here's what they find between my inner and outer cheek, a combination of polio and tuberculosis. Very bizarre. But that was part of my life and part of my experience. I've had some things just happen to me that were just not the norm. And I survived it. Didn't have any effects. My parents, well, when I was about 5 years old, they divorced. My mom, a couple years later, met a man who was 20 years her senior. World War II generation. Let me tell you, I grew up with a different perspective just because of that. Now, this gets into the story and telling the tale. See, my mom would, of course, have my older brother watch my younger brother and I. Now, when they got married, it was a little bit around Thanksgiving, early Christmas time. And this particular year, they were going on a vacation. Now, at the time when I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. And Cleveland, Ohio is kind of got that early winter weather that hits late November, beginning of December. So snow was just starting to fall. My mom and my stepfather were on a trip to Atlantic City. Now, I want to clarify this. This was back in the day before there were cell phones. So contacting my mom and my stepfather was, well, not exactly easy. Just to give you that point up front right away. So here's the event that took place. It was a Monday. I went to school much like I did. There was snowing outside, like I said. My younger brother went to the same school I did. We came home. My older brother was in high school. I was 10, he was 17. He came by. We did our thing in the mid-afternoon after school, and then we went out to eat. I think we went out and grabbed pizza that night. Pizza, kids. Go figure, right? And a normal, everyday thing. We came back, and we did what we normally would do, at least my younger brother and I. My older brother, he was on the phone as a teenager would be, talking to whomever, doesn't really matter. And my younger brother and I were playing tag in the house. Yes, tag in the house. We were kind of rough, as I kind of told you before. We actually had a lot of fun when we, did the things we did. One of the times when my older brother was watching us, we had what we love to call spatula wars, where we'd take out spatulas and actually fight with them. So we were very creative in the way that we played. So when it came to tag in the house, let's just say there were objects that played into the play of playing tag. So this particular time, I'm going to reproduce something that I was actually in the process of doing more than once. See, I like doing backflips and forward flips and all kinds of stuff. I'd climb up to the tops of trees and jump out of them. It wouldn't bother me. So I'm running down a hall, and my younger brother's behind me. And just as the hall opens up into a room, one wall straight, the other wall takes a right turn, and right sitting there is a couch. Now, I'd done this before. I grabbed the arm of the couch, did a rolling somersault. And when that took place, I would use that momentum to really slingshot the distance between me and my younger brother. And well, you can kind of imagine that. Whatever happened this time, it was something different. I ran to that arm of that couch and I did my tuck and roll. But for a weird second or so, life sort of seemed to stop. I didn't have any out-of-body experience or anything like that. All I know is that the momentum I normally would have, I didn't have, and I found myself feeling a pillow on the back of my head. Apparently, I had done the flip just fine and had a pillow right behind my head. But this is where the weird thing came in. I thought I was dead. I mean, I really thought I was a ghost. I could see my body, but I couldn't feel it or move it. This realization of, oh my, what has just happened to me? It's quite amazing and overwhelming, as you might imagine. I think I was in some sort of shock and had difficulty kind of breathing almost. Within seconds later, and I told you, my brother and I, we were really tough at playing, right? I get pummeled over the head with a pillow. Left, right. And I'm trying to understand what's going on, at the same time trying to get my brother to stop, trying to talk to him. And I recognize, I don't think I really have a voice. I can barely hear myself speak. how can I get over this? So somewhere within me, I thought to myself, I will use my natural voice and the vacuum through breathing to squeak out, I can't move. For whatever reason, my younger brother stopped. I don't know if he heard me or not. But I think to this day, when he kind of recalls the situation, he sees it as kind of me playing possum. All this real hard play and me stopping dead. So that's why he's hit me over the head with the pillow. The next thing makes for a great story, but I tell you, the experience was horrible. My younger brother at this moment decides, wow, he's really playing possum really well. I'm gonna get him. For whatever reason, he takes off his sock. Yes, he takes off his sock. He balls it up and shoves it in my mouth. Can you imagine what that must be like, not being able to move, not being able to feel, and have a sock shoved in your mouth? Not fun. Life was really challenging for me at this moment. The only person that could understand I couldn't move, well, wasn't really paying attention, and, well, I had a sock in my mouth. I was able to somehow work that out with my tongue or something. Tell you this day, I don't know how I got out. But my younger brother started to hear this faint whisper of me saying, I can't move. He got the point that, wow, he was handling all this that he was dishing out to me because there was a problem. So he went and grabbed my older brother. My older brother was like, what's going on? Come in here. Because we'd always played before. We never really had any problems. I mean, even if we got bumped or hit, it did not affect us. We just thought it was just part of the play. Because we were tough like that. He came over and he did something to my leg. I don't recall. I really couldn't see much of it. But on the recount of talking to my older brother, he said it was kind of like Pinocchio, right? It didn't have any feel. It didn't have any strength to it. It just sort of was like there. I was like a puppet. So he went and called the ambulance. He tried to calm me down and try to assess the situation, in which he really didn't have the skills. My younger brother, I think at this time, felt real bad and was kind of ushered off the situation. And before too long, the ambulance arrived, had the big old stretcher thing, and I could see him out of the periphery of my eye laying that. I think there was a table or coffee table nearby, and they moved me onto it. They put one of these foam cuff neck things. And one of the things that was really comforting was one of the men who was there was actually a father of a boy that I went to school with. And it was part of that show and tell thing, so part of the, firemen or the EMS or whatever. So that was kind of good feeling. That was about the first good feeling I had this whole time. I was like, wow, there's an adult around that might know something. Because I know my older brother and my younger brother didn't. So they get me over to the hospital. This is where things really went out of scale. They just put me on a table. I don't know if it was what I came in on or what the deal was. There was this bright light, hot bright light above my head. I still had the taste of a sock in my mouth. Wow, I can almost recall that with as dry as my mouth is getting right now speaking to you. And let me tell you, it's not a fun experience having sock mouth. And I'm talking to the doctors or whoever it is that's coming asking me questions, and I'm telling them I can't move. And they don't seem to believe me. I mean, I'm not moving around anywhere. I can't feel in my body or move it. And I'm telling them I'm thirsty. I would really like something to drink. And they say, we don't know what caused this. We don't know what's the matter. We can't give you anything to drink. I thought to myself, wow, I'm in trouble here. I'm saying what's what, and they heard the story, they knew the story of what happened, but they still act like they don't know what's going on. One weird thing happened to me while I was on that table. Now, I don't know really what this was, but I think it was my body's way of trying to connect, try to get that feeling back. I remember this happening a couple of times, and it's what made me think there might be some way of getting out of this. I actually felt this sensation where all of a sudden I went from feeling nothing to I was dropping through the table. It was the weirdest sensation I could have ever thought of. I liken it to something out of Star Trek where you see that kind of shimmery look where they transport. It was like I was being transported through the table enough, but I have my head on a pillow and I'm leaning back and I can see above me, but outside of that, I can't see my body and I'm definitely not moving, so I don't know what was happening. That really spooked me out. Between that and everything else, I thought to myself, this must be a dream. And I closed my eyes and just tried to relax. I thought, maybe I'll just wake up and this will all be done. Well, the next day and that morning, that was a different day. They had moved me from wherever I was. Maybe it was the same table or what, it doesn't really matter, but you know, like in the hospital where they have the back leaned up? Well, this was where my situation was when I woke up. I was leaned up wherever I was sitting. I still had this foam neck brace on. And what brought me to become awake was some sort of noise that was going on relating to a nurse or a dietitian or whomever it was that was bringing in food. And let me tell you, with that sock mouth still going on, that orange juice really looked good. I tried my best, not being able to move still, to explain to the woman who was bringing in this set of food and this juice. I mean, I'm telling you, that juice never looked so good, that I couldn't move. Now, I did the best I could as a 10-year-old to explain to the woman that I couldn't move, and I don't think she totally grasped it. I think she thought, oh, he's trying to say he can't reach it. So she took the juice and put it in my hand, and of course, because I didn't have any ability to control what I was doing, I dumped it all over me. And she got all upset. I thought to myself, oh boy, I'm in trouble. And that juice just got wasted. Eeks. So I was not doing too good. And the doctor had come in and he said, we think we got a hold of your dad. He'll be coming in shortly to pick you up. I thought to myself, pick me up? Now, one of the things I didn't tell you that I recognized, because I think another one of the nurses got upset with me, I was like wet in the bed. I mean, I couldn't control bodily functions. I was like a baby. And out of the corner of my ear, kind of like out of the corner of my eye, I could see my dad talking to someone, and the conversation was something like this. Well, sir, we don't know what happened to your son, but we think he got stunned. We think he's totally all right, and it's a beautiful day, and it's snowing. I'd suggest that you take him out on a sled ride and let him think nothing of what happened, and he'll totally forget it. At that moment, I thought, I am in the deepest trouble I could ever be in. Every adult that is supposed to take care of me has totally failed me. Can you imagine that? Sitting there, hearing the doctor tell my dad that I could go play in the snow, where I couldn't even control my bodily functions, and or grab a glass of juice and put it in my mouth? That was tough. So, Dad did get me. He had to carry me off to the car. The whole time I could tell Dad was feeling a little off about what was going on because, well, it wasn't exactly what the doctor told him. And I could say whatever I could say, but it just like it wouldn't set in. So he takes me off to Grandma's. Of course, you know, he wanted to have someone else there because he didn't know what was going on. Placed me on a bed. Got kind of frustrated with me because kind of wet the bed a couple times. And I don't recall ever eating that day. I think I was kind of napping and he kind of just let me be in hopes that somehow something would happen or change. Now, of course, in this whole time frame, as soon as everything took place, my older brother got a hold of my mom, called the Atlantic City casino that they were staying at. They made a phone call here or there. You know, they were out on the boardwalk or doing whatever they were doing. And so they finally were able to get a hold of them and they came on by and going to come on back home. Well, my dad got a call from my older brother and he basically said, well, your mom's going to be home later this evening. We're going to drop you off at home. I thought, okay, well, this is good. One saving grace is mom's a nurse. I've had other nurses here, but maybe mom being the nurse might be the nurse that I need to have. Whew. All right, I'm going to be back home. It's been 24 hours almost, and I'm still not being able to move, and nobody's really listening to what I'm saying. So my dad carries me to my house where I'm staying and lays me in my bed, and my mom comes home shortly after. Once I start talking to her, she's still as puzzled as everyone else, but she does the one thing no one else had really done that time. She took me out to the kitchen and sat me straight up in a chair. Now, I would liken to the effect that took place as something kind of what would happen when you think of arc welding, where you have the two dissimilar metals that have a charge that when they meet, all of a sudden there's a sparking effect, and that's how that energy is used to translate and melt the wire and you can weld. Well, something happened, whether I just slightly got moved or gravity took hold, but whatever wasn't touching decided to touch in a way that, well, no one could have imagined. I went from one moment not being able to feel anything to feeling my whole body with shoots of energy going through me, extreme pain shooting through me. I was like a fish out of water, flipping and flopping around. I couldn't control anything. I went from not having any control to being so out of control it was actually even more scary. My mom had to hold me down, called the ambulance again. I thought, oh boy, oh great, it's the doctors again. What are they going to do for me now? The first time around, they never even took x-rays or any scans or anything. Now they get me to the hospital. They're trying to do all the scans. Now they're upset at me because what? I can't stay still. Anything that took place was always 100% backwards to the way that you would think it would normally take place. Eventually they were able to tie me down and get me so I wasn't rocking around or whatever the story was, and they took some scans. The doctors still couldn't figure out what was the matter. They sent me off to a room. My mom tells me that they really wanted to put me in a room with a camera. They thought I was making this whole thing up because to those doctors, they couldn't see anything the matter with me. Now, I thought because they had done the scans and all that, they were going to get the answers, they're going to fix me up. Here's the story that took place. The doctors who were doing the scanning couldn't find things. They didn't know what was going on. They recognized that maybe I did have a problem, they just couldn't figure it out. Thankfully, their egos weren't so big that they could seek some help. There was a man who was well known for finding the answers to difficult medical cases, and he was giving some sort of presentation, lecture, story, or something or other, and they asked him to take a look. When they did, one of the most surprising things came to light. I cracked the C1. And if you don't know anything about biology, the C1 is this. It's the vertebrae right next to the brainstem. This is the one that if you get in a car wreck or dive into a pool and you break your neck, you die, because usually you crack this, all your involuntary organs, it's like your heartbeat, your lungs, all the things that keep you going without you ever thinking about it, all of a sudden stop. They don't know why I was still alive. After that, they sent me off to go for surgery. To this day, anytime I go see a doctor, they hear the story and they take a look, they think it's amazing that I survived 2 days of being carried around like Pinocchio, not being able to move, given that injury. Now, this is where the story, I'm going to speed it up because, well, it goes into more in line with a standard recovery situation. I did have some unusual challenges here and there, in which I had some challenges with digestive system problems, lying on my back with my stomach for so long, and that's an interesting story. Or waking up with, things attached to me that I had no idea what was going on after surgery, because, well, of course, as a kid, they don't tell you. That stuff was really interesting. But to really condense the story down, within less than 6 months, I was fully recovered. That means that I was able to move and feel and walk around. Totally. Now, I have to admit, there was one or two small little things. The bottom of my feet and the front of my chest, I think. For whatever reason, I had a little bit of temperature, hot and cold. But outside of that, I could move, and within a few months, that all took care of itself. That experience changed me. I had to recover and adapt. The way that I started thinking and perceiving was vastly different than anything I was ever taught, and I was able to do it. Now, as time progressed, I went through school, moved a couple times, and I did what everyone else did, except I was noticing something. It wasn't always there, and it wasn't always clear, but I was doing different things that were working. I can't really say what working was, but at the time it was. And I noticed when everyone went on their own come college time, that there was this weird feeling that I was picking up from people, but I wasn't experiencing it. That's kind of where I get this idea of where I explain this aha moment with the self-actualization. I recognized that I actually had that experience, and the experience that I had shifted me in time so that an experience that I would have had such a young age, I had so much more time to learn from the experience. That is what I want to teach to you. That experience, which I had for 25 years and still have, has enabled me to do many amazing things and recognize and do things that proves to me that, one, I am self-actualized, and there are many people who aren't. I got my degree in engineering, went and worked for various firms, and found myself within the economy of the current age, last in, first out. I finally recognized that the value I was bringing to companies, thinking the way I was, wasn't actually as beneficial to me as it was to them. And I wanted to turn this around. How could I aid other people in learning what I already knew? That discovery had taken a couple of years. That's why this engineering background is very critical, and it's actually a very good thing that I have, because it took me a while to examine what I was doing and to figure it out so that I could put it into language to explain it, because when you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it, you have no way of being able to communicate that. That's how I can say with an authority and a sense of knowing this, you don't know what you don't know, and until someone tells it to you, you won't know. And a lot of people that you know in your life, teachers, parents, the list goes on, who've tried to educate you, they didn't know what they didn't know. I experienced that for days, a couple days, and then on to my recovery. So that is the information that I bring into my course. And I look forward to showing and sharing that in-depth knowledge with you. I hold nothing back.